Alejandra.
Agradecemos este día. Vamos a platicar con la candidata independiente por el distrito de Hamilton Center, Sarah Jama. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to receive you today in Toronto.
Thank you for having me.
Hoy día vamos a tener el gusto de entrevistar a la candidata independiente por Hamilton Center, Sarah Jama. Es un gusto de tenerte aquí.
The first question, do you think we have a African-Canadian leadership in Canada currently?
Sara, ¿crees que tenemos en la actualidad un liderazgo afrodescendiente en Canadá?
I think when we talk about leadership, there are many Africans who've gotten involved in organizing local levels and across communities to take care of one another, especially amongst the rise of anti-immigrant sentiment in Canada right now. Where I would say there is a huge gap is in the political field, in the political sector. We've seen time and time again, Black people are often pushed out of being able to be represented in political spaces. So there are a few examples. I'm thinking of Laura May Lindo, who had to leave her position, and Anna Mae Paul, who had to leave her position, and many other Black people who've been let down or pushed out of political spaces. Actually, just last night, the NDP in Hamilton Center held a recount. There was Kojo Damptey, who's an African from Ghana, who won the nomination meeting to be able to run provincially here in Hamilton on the mountain. And they held a recount, and he still won the recount, but it was held in the middle of the night. And I think some of that has to do with people not wanting African and Black leadership in these spaces time and time again. And you can see that in the case with my election as well.
Okay. Just one quick session. What is the name of the NDP candidate? Candidate.
Kojo.
Oduro.
Kojo
Okay.
Damptey.
Ok, thank you. Mira, cuando hablamos de liderazgo de afrodescendientes en Canadá de manera general, se puede ver que hay un cierto sentimiento, hay más visibilidad, pero hay un gran vacío en lo que es el área del liderazgo político. Lo que hemos visto es de que la gente a veces es expulsada del puesto que ya han ganado. Por ejemplo, es el caso de Laura May Lindo. Ella era una diputada que tuvo que dejar su puesto porque era muy difícil. Y también con la líder del Partido Verde, Annie Mae Paul, prácticamente su propio partido la echó. Y inclusive anoche el partido NDP aquí en Hamilton tuvo que hacer un recuento de los nominados a la candidatura de esa área, de ese distrito, y es el caso de Oduro Cordotante, que estaban disputando si es que había ganado o no. Y a la medianoche hicieron un recuento y ganó. Pero todo ese drama y esa exigencia es porque parece que la gente no quiere que haya un liderazgo de gente africana en Canadá. Go ahead. Please continue.
The second question, what is the reason you are running as an independent candidate in the provincial election, and what will be main challenges you could face?
Absolutely. So I ran for office in 2023 and I was elected with the New Democratic Party of Ontario. Prior to being elected, I was the executive director of the Disability Justice Network of Ontario. And I was super excited as like a Black person, as a Muslim, as someone with a physical disability. You can't see me, but I'm in a wheelchair. To get involved in progressive politics and push for policy change. Unfortunately, almost like 6 months after I was elected, October 7th happened. And 3 days later, as I was watching almost all political parties put up statements saying Israel had the right to defend itself and condemning Hamas, 3 days later, the Rafah border was closed. 3,000 Palestinians were killed. And people were calling me in my community saying their family was under the rubble. And as someone who has deep roots in understanding what decolonization looks like and understanding how all of our struggles are connected and understanding that Israel is an apartheid state, I couldn't justify, after 3 days of the public and people in positions of power only humanizing one narrative, I couldn't justify not speaking up to say, hey, this is terrible, there should be a ceasefire, Palestinians have the right to exist. Bare minimum statement, I quoted the United Nations, and what unfolded after that was 8 hours of debate from the Ontario government, likening me to being a terrorist sympathizer, and then they voted to censure me, which means I couldn't speak or debate as a legislator until I apologized for my statement calling for a ceasefire. Shortly after that, I was kicked out of the party, partially because I think they felt their narrative was that I was not being a team player, but I think looking back, they felt that that I shouldn't have put up my statement, that I should have apologized. I refused to do so because the statement I put up was the bare minimum. And so what unfolded was I was kicked out of my party.
Sure. Let's continue with that just in a second. Sí es cierto, en el año 2023 me postulé como candidata del NDP y fue elegida con ese partido. Pero antes de ser una diputada, yo era la directora ejecutiva de un centro que yo fundé, se llama Disability Justice Network Ontario, la red de la justicia para los discapacitados en Ontario. Entonces yo, como persona negra, como musulmana, como una persona que usa de silla de ruedas, tengo una discapacidad y aunque no ves mi silla, yo estoy usándola. Yo tenía una responsabilidad muy grande como líder. 6 meses después de haber sido elegida, ocurrió los eventos del 7 de octubre. Y 3 días después, ellos cerraron la frontera de Rafah. Mucha gente estaba en el discurso público, estaban hablando de lo terrible de la situación, pero la gente que me llamaba a mí, mis constituyentes, me llamaban y me decían, mi familia está bajo escombros. Entonces, comprendiendo cómo es la opresión y el colonialismo, yo lo que hice fue dar un aviso en un anuncio en el Parlamento, sencillamente para humanizar la narrativa. Yo dije, esto es terrible, estoy pidiendo el cese del fuego y también dije que los palestinos tienen el derecho a existir. Básicamente dije lo mismo que dijo el mensaje de las Naciones Unidas, pero en el Parlamento de Ontario fue toda una semana de discusión, hasta me llamaron terrorista y me pusieron una sanción de que no podía yo discutir ningún debate, prácticamente me censuraron y luego lo que ellos quisieron fue que yo pida disculpas. En mi partido, que es lo que había comenzado a explicar, es que ellos, parece que hubo un entendido de que ellos no querían que yo hable, pero también querían que yo pida disculpas. Could you please continue what happened when your party?
Yeah. So I was kicked out of my party, so I sit as an independent. And I think for me, the reason why I'm running independently again, although I've tried to repair relationships with the NDP, the provincial council said I should be able to run openly in the nomination locally for the NDP. The leadership still said no, but the membership of the party most agree with my statement, and most political parties and political leaders have since called for a ceasefire since my statement went up. So because of not being able to run democratically with the NDP in their nomination, I'm running independently. I think there's a lot of power that comes with independency in the sense that I'm not given a script of what to say. I think people in Hamilton Center know that no matter what, I'm going to fight to say the right thing, even if it means risking my job. No matter what, by any means necessary. And I'm excited at the prospect of being able to represent people in my riding in a way that's not beholden to any one party. As an independent, I've been able to table 20 motions, and while I can't debate, I've been able to participate in committee work, which is where most of the work happens in the job anyway. I don't get my 30 seconds on camera, but I'm still able to do a majority of the job and to vote. And once I'm reelected, the censure gets lifted. So I think that's an important fight to show that the government shouldn't be allowed to censure or take away someone's voice just because they expressed an opinion. My riding in Hamilton Centre is the poorest riding in all of the province of Ontario. We're the most under-resourced. Half of my riding is renters, right? There are high rates of people with disabilities and who are living in encampments. There is no better person to represent this riding than someone who's from here and understands what community is going through and has fought for this community for years. And I refuse to be bought or pushed into silence in order to maintain the status quo. And I'm not here for a paycheck, so I'm going to do the right thing and continue to say the right thing. And my community supports me, and I'm looking forward to representing them independently.
Cuando me expulsaron del partido, comprendí que tenía que trabajar como independiente. Y es por eso que estoy ahora nuevamente siendo una candidata independiente. Yo intenté reparar relaciones con mi partido y los miembros del partido están de acuerdo conmigo, con la posición que yo he tenido. Ahora es la opinión de la mayoría, lo del cese del fuego, pero la directiva del partido ha dicho que no. Por lo tanto, yo voy a continuar a postular como candidata independiente. Realmente que hay más poder cuando uno es una candidata independiente. A mí no me dan ningún guión sobre qué es lo que tengo que decir. La gente de mi distrito Hamilton Center sabe que yo diré lo que sea necesario, incluso si es que es a riesgo de mi trabajo. Yo los represento sin tener que estar ligada o tener deuda política con ningún partido. Como independiente, como diputada independiente, yo he presentado 20 mociones. He hecho trabajo de comité, que es realmente donde uno hace su trabajo. Claro, no tengo los 30 segundos de fama en la televisión como los otros, pero el gobierno no debería censurar a ninguna persona, especialmente a un político que quiere expresar su opinión. En mi distrito hay un alto índice de discapacidad. En efecto, es la ciudad que tiene más personas con discapacidad. Hay una crisis de la vivienda. Y yo lo que voy a hacer es trabajar por ellos. Ellos lo saben, ellos lo entienden y me apoyan. Y saben que yo no voy a dejar de hacer mi trabajo por el sueldo o que yo no voy a comprometer mis principios sencillamente por alguna otra opción. Ellos me conocen y saben que soy de ellos.
Sara, as an activist in housing disability, what are the main problems still being facing Hamilton Center?
Yeah, I alluded to this a little bit, but Hamilton Center is the poorest riding in all of Ontario. We are underfunded. There are mass issues around the manufactured housing crisis. People don't have access to a family doctor, and people are just struggling to get by to the cost of living, struggling to pay gas, food, and rent. When I knock doors in my community, sometimes people are afraid to open the door, and they told me so because they're worried it's their landlord coming to collect a paycheck. And I believe that if you work a job, you should be able to survive and exist. I think that if you don't work a job, if you're struggling to be employed or you have a disability or for whatever reason, you also have the right to exist. We're at the point now where people have 2 or 3 jobs and they're still struggling to get by and make rent. I think our government devalues the lives of everyday people, and part of that is because we've had the same people elected at times for 20, 30 years who are so removed from the everyday experiences here. Half of my writing are renters. I'm a renter myself, and I think we need to be investing in non-market housing, public housing to take care of people, supportive housing so that people who are experiencing extreme mental health concerns and who are in crisis are supported and have somewhere to live. We need to be investing in real access to healthcare. We need to be reforming the assistive devices program so people are not waiting on social assistance who want to go out and work because they won't be able to afford a $10,000 electric wheelchair. Like, these are real stories of everyday people who are struggling to get by, and solutions are possible if we had a fiscally responsible government. The Conservatives, and Ford particularly, espouses to be for the people and wanting to reduce red tape, but then he'll spend millions upon millions of dollars on ending an LCBO contract a year early to try to get alcohols into stores, or removing bike lanes, which no one really asked him for. What we need to be seeing are real investments in our public services, and there has been this trend of underfunding a service, manufacturing a crisis, and then saying, oh, look, this public sector doesn't work anymore. We need to privatize. We saw that happen with healthcare, where funding continuously was cut. And now those investments are going into the private sector, which is, he says, is helping the system, when it's not, because people are having to pay $1,000 for like cataract surgery, which hasn't existed in my lifetime as a 30-year-old young woman in Canada. We've never seen a situation where people had to pay out of pocket for that kind of care. We're seeing the same things begin to happen with our education sector, where it's constantly underfunded and people are having to pay and rely on private tutoring sorry, that's my mom walking by. Private tutoring or private educational services, because the public sector has been so underfunded and people are blaming each other. And rather than listening to nurses or everyday teachers, Doug Ford will take them to court, right? And so what we're seeing reflected in Hamilton Center is the impact of manufactured crisis, or the textbook neoliberalist playbook of underfunding a service, calling it a problem, and then privatizing it. And
Okay.
Sorry for ranting.
No, that's okay. I'm just making sure I get all the notes. Yo lo que aludí antes en mi respuesta es de que mi distrito en Hamilton realmente es el riding, se dice en inglés, el distrito más pobre de todos los distritos en Ontario. Hay un problema muy grande con lo que es el alojamiento, la vivienda, el alquiler sobre todo. No hay médicos de familia. La gente, aunque tienen trabajo, viven en la pobreza. Luchar con el costo de vida es duro. Cuando yo voy tocando las puertas para decirle a la gente que me apoye en mi candidatura, la gente me dice, yo no quería abrir la puerta porque tengo miedo de que sea el casero que viene a pedirme el cheque del alquiler. Entonces hay esa precariedad. Si uno sobrevive con un trabajo o 2 o 3, porque hay gente que necesita tener muchos trabajos precarios o tiene algún tipo de discapacidad, aún así tienen derecho a existir. Y el gobierno devalúa la vida de los que son pobres. La mitad de las personas en mi sector son inquilinos, ellos alquilan, yo también. Yo vivo en una casa arrendada. Y ahí, por ejemplo, hay una falta del gobierno que no da apoyo con vivienda, construir nuevas viviendas, o, por ejemplo, en el caso de personas con discapacidad, no ha mejorado el sistema de los soportes y apoyos para personas con discapacidad, ¿no? Por ejemplo, no todos tienen $4,000 disponibles para comprar una silla de ruedas. El gobierno no es responsable. Nos dicen, este gobierno de Ford, nos dicen, somos un gobierno del pueblo y queremos menos burocracia. Sin embargo, lo primero que hacen es traer licores para que la gente los pueda consumir en cualquier momento. Envían $200 en un cheque que nadie les pidió y luego lo que hacen es fabricar las crisis, ¿no? Ponen la inversión en el sector privado y en vez de dar el servicio como ha sido tradicionalmente gratuito, ahora la gente tiene que pagar $1,000 por una operación de cataratas. En mis 30 años de vida nunca he visto este tipo de cosas. Y además, dentro de lo que es el sector educativo, la gente ahora tiene que pagar por tutorías para poder estar bien educados. Es porque no hay apoyo para los maestros, no hay apoyo para las enfermeras, y lo que hace este gobierno es llevarlos a los tribunales a hacer gastar tiempo y dinero. La jugada neoliberal ya se conoce. Primero, le quitan el financiamiento a los programas sociales, luego dicen que no funcionan y entonces ellos traen su respuesta de privatización.
Sarah, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would like to add that Hamilton Center, my riding, has been NDP for generations. And I think now is an important time. If there were any riding to sort of experiment with a new way of doing politics, it would be this progressive working class riding. It's a labor city. It's filled with working class people who understand the everyday lived experiences and the impacts of privatization and the impact of the cost of living crisis in our communities. If there were any place to try out electing an independent in Canada, which is not a traditional way of doing politics, it would be here. When I knock doors, people continuously tell me that they're tired of the party politics across the board, of not feeling represented. And I think if we could even get 15% of the Legislative Assembly to be represented by independents, it would mean under a minority government, you're forced to actually debate and talk to each other to pass policy. It's not a matter of one party saying something is a good idea and just forcing legislation through that nobody wants. Like, in order to get something to pass, you actually genuinely would have to debate and convince each other that your ideas were great and good enough to pass. Right now, we are existing under a majority conservative government, which is unprecedented in Ontario. It means that the Conservatives don't even have to show up to debate in order to pass anything, because there's 80 of them and 30 of the rest of us, whether it's NDP, Greens, Liberals, or the independents that are there right now. They don't need to debate us in order to pass anything. They just pass it. I don't think that's what the Legislative Assembly should look like. I don't think that's how politics should function. And the more independent, free thinkers who are able to just get in there and say what they actually feel represents their community, the harder it will be to pass like dangerous policy as quickly as we're seeing. And especially now when politics has been so divisive, being able to force multi-partisan conversations across parties that go beyond the color that you're standing with is important, because that's how you get into nuanced conversations in terms of what the impacts will be on specific communities. So I'm excited about this. We saw Jeremy Corbyn pull this off. We saw a ton of people in Australia pull this off. I think it's doable, and I'm excited to be one of the first to try to do this in Canada. And I hope I have your support.
Who's the person in Australia, sorry? The current leader?
I didn't say any names. I just said there are lots of independents in Australia.
Thank you. I thought I have missed it.
I said Jeremy Corbyn, though, in
yes,
the UK.
Jeremy Corbyn I got, yes. Solamente estaba verificando el nombre. Mira, lo que quiero agregar es que el distrito Hamilton Center siempre ha sido un bastión del NDP por generaciones. Hay una forma de si hubiera un espacio específico donde hacer un experimento de éxito para un político independiente, es mi distrito de Hamilton Center. Ahí hay una presencia grande de trabajadores, de comunidades activas, de personas que quieren participar, gente en la pobreza también. Cuando yo voy a tocar a las puertas, ellos me dicen, ya estamos cansados de que el partido realmente no nos represente ni luche por los que son nuestras necesidades. Lo que yo pienso es de que si aún solo el 15% del Parlamento fuera compuesto por políticos independientes, habría un debate de ideas en el Parlamento. Pero ahora por ejemplo, estamos nosotros existiendo bajo una mayoría conservadora. Ellos no tienen, los diputados conservadores ni siquiera tienen que presentarse o asistir al Parlamento. Ellos son 80 miembros, nosotros somos 30, todos los otros partidos somos 30. Entonces, cuando quieren aprobar alguna legislación, sencillamente votan por mayoría, no tienen que ir y discutir ideas y presentar y negociar. Nada de eso ocurre. Entonces, no están presentes para debatir. Y el debate es sumamente importante ahora que hay una política tan divisiva. Depende ahora dónde estás, tu voto dónde está, depende del color de tu partido. Yo estoy muy, muy entusiasmada con el éxito que ha tenido, por ejemplo, Jeremy Corbyn, que es una persona independiente, y también muchos políticos en Australia que también se han presentado como independientes, y es el movimiento que espero que siga. Y también espero contar con el apoyo de ustedes.
Agradecemos a la candidata independiente por el distrito de Hamilton Center, Sarah Gemma, por haberse reunido con nosotros. Nice to meet you. Thanks for this interview and have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, Sarah, and best of luck.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.